Everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host of the Dark Stuff channel on YouTube. Thanks so much for checking out my latest video. It is much appreciated. This video is the best albums of 2024, one of the most highly anticipated and most viewed videos that I do every year. The only criteria to make it in the best of 2024, it's not about genre or anything, it's just about whether you were released in the calendar year of 2024 and are you a full-length album? Okay, not a compilation, not a live album, not a box set, not a reissue, none of that stuff. New music for 2024. I started off with a list of about 45 albums. I whittled it down to 20. As I do every year, numbers 20 through 11, I'll do in a quick video montage. I will rejoin you and we'll discuss the top 10. Coming in at number 10 is the 14th album from LL Cool J called The Force. This record is so effing good, okay? So a few months ago, I put out a video called 4 Early Contenders for Album of the Year, and one of them was this LL Cool J record, and initially I had slated a different record to be in that spot, but I heard this LL record on a whim. Not so much a whim, but I mean, a lot of people talking about it on social media, saying how great it was. And I was skeptical. Okay, I'm an old school LL fan. I love the guy. Okay, I loved him since the 80s. But he's more of a TV star now, right? I mean, in 2013, that was the last time he released an album. He even said a few years ago he was going to give up rap and he was going to work exclusively on his acting career, which was going really well at the time. He was on NCIS and all this. So it just seemed like, well, why is he coming back to rap? Well, I'll tell you why he's coming back to rap, because he had something else to say. This album is phenomenal. First of all, the Force stands for Frequencies of Real Creative Energy. I know, kind of dorky, but whatever. I also don't like the album cover, but that's the only thing critical you're going to hear me say about this record. It is so effing great. Produced by Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest and as a solo artist, and he has this like amazing ability to make the music sound both like new and classic at the same time. It's fresh, it's fun, it hits. It's not like what I don't like about modern rap, which is these kind of weak beats and mumbly rapping. It's like, this is LL. He is a real MC, okay? As with every rap record, there are a lot of guest spots. This one has guest spots from Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Nas, Saweetie, Busta Rhymes, Rick Ross, Fat Joe, a couple more that I can't remember off the top of my head. It is excellent. Every song is good. It's just like a guy that's been doing records this long, 40 years in the game. You have no right to be making a record this good. That's my last thought on it. LL Cool J, The Force, coming in at number 10.
But I'm failing that class, so many reasons to smile.
All right, coming in at number 9 is The Lost Record by Susanna Hoffs. The lead singer of the Bangles, this is her 6th solo album. It was originally recorded back in 1999, and it would have been her 3rd solo album if it had come out at that time. So this album was being recorded with her and a producer and co-songwriter named Dan Schwartz. Most of the songs are co-written by Susanna and Schwartz and maybe a couple other people. But then the record was basically scrapped because the Bangles got back together. They ended up doing a world tour. They did a couple records together, and now I don't know what their status exactly is at the moment. By the late 90s, you know, Susanna's solo career had kind of stalled. Her 2 solo albums that had come out at the time didn't do that well. They didn't break through the same way the Bangles had, and I think this was a record, an attempt to sort of kickstart her solo career again. And again, it ultimately ended up becoming irrelevant because the Bangles got back together and everyone was super excited about that, myself included. Now, some of these songs didn't just sit on the shelf for 25 years, okay, since they were recorded in the 90s. Some of them have come out in other capacities. So in other words, the song Under a Cloud, which is the opening track, was later on the Bangles' Sweetheart of the Sun record. I Will Take Care of You, which is on here. It's the 5th song on side 1. That was on the Bangles album Doll Revolution. And a song, November Sun, which is on side 2, was later re-recorded and was put on her 2012 album Someday. Now, most of the songs are written, like I said, by Susanna with this Dan Schwartz. However, there are some notable ones in that the most interesting song to me is called Life on the Inside. Okay, it's a second to last song on side 2. It's a co-write with Susanna, plus Charlotte Caffey and Jane Weedland of the Go-Go's. Now, I was kind of hoping at first when I heard that it was going to be kind of a rockin', like early 80s kind of Go-Go's track. It's not, okay? It has strings. It's a beautiful ballad. It actually is more reminiscent of, say, Eternal Flame than any sort of Bangles or Go-Go's track, but it is great, and it's cool that those guys work together. That is called Life on the Inside. Coming in at number 9 is The Lost Record from Susanna Hoffs.
Everyone wants to be the architect, bust through the crowd.
Okay, my number 8 record belongs to the Mommyheads. It is called One-Eyed Band. I just posted an interview with Adam Elk from this band not too long ago, and he goes really in depth about some of the themes behind the album, the way it was made, etc. So I will leave some of those details so you can watch that interview. I will say that for their 16th album, the Mommyheads, who change it up every time, no matter what they're doing, they're loosely defined as, say, like a progressive indie pop band, whatever that means to you, right? Little prog, little indie, little quirky, little jammy, little whatever, all of that stuff thrown in. So in that interview, I pointed out to Adam that a lot of prog fans really, really like the Mommyheads, and prog websites and prog YouTube channels talk about them. But I've never been much of a prog guy, so for me, I didn't really get it. I didn't see what the prog thing was. But I guess I do sort of understand it. And he said, there's prog that's super complicated and inaccessible, and then there's stuff like Duke and Abacab from Genesis, which is poppy, but it still has prog in it, and it is able to reach more people. And I think that was the thinking musically going into it. Lyrically, I think what he was talking about was that sometimes you can get so lost in your singular focus to create art that you almost exclude everything else, right? And sometimes it's about loosely the sacrifices that you make to make your art, right? It's a really, really thoughtful album, a really, really extremely well played. The vocals are great. It's just like the Mommyheads. They're always in my top 10. Their last 4 albums have made my top 10, so not a surprise here at number 8 with the Mommyheads' One-Eyed Band. Number 7 belongs to St. Vincent with All Born Screaming. Now, earlier in the year when this album came out in the spring, I did a video called Too Soon to Name the Best Album of 2024. Here are 4 early contenders. And in it, I raved about this new St. Vincent record. I absolutely gushed about it, okay? Annie Clark, aka St. Vincent, produced this album herself, which makes sense because she's now producing other artists, co-writing songs with other artists. She's worked with Taylor Swift. She's worked with Sleater Kinney. So that part makes sense. I'm glad, because she shed working with Jack Antonoff, who is more of a mainstream pop producer, and that's why I didn't really care much for her last 2 albums, Mass Seduction and Daddy's Home. So I feel like this is a major return to form in that it doesn't feel like Annie is portraying a character this time. It feels like she's just being herself, sort of like on Actor, on Strange Mercy, on her debut album, Marry Me. And it has that more feel, maybe even the self-titled one, although that is more of a character when she started doing that sort of thing. The album is a fantastic myriad of styles here. It's Big Time Nothing is kind of a funkier track. So Many Planets feels almost reggae. Flea is maybe the best St. Vincent song since Marrow, which has always been my favorite St. Vincent song from Actor. It's just so unique. The lyrics and the way they're presented, it's just you just wonder how somebody does the thought process to come up with the lyrics to both Marrow and Flea, because they're both highly unusual. Now, St. Vincent has always existed on the periphery of the mainstream music industry. She's never quite cracked it, though she's very close. This album, though, received 4 Grammy nominations. 4. Now, I just held up 3 fingers when I said 4. 4. I'm not really a big Grammy guy, but I will say that I think that is impressive that you got 4, okay? The song Broken Man was nominated for Grammy for Best Rock Performance. Now, she's up against some pretty stiff competition. The Beatles, Pearl Jam, Black Keys, and Green Day. That's kind of tough. She's nominated for Best Rock Song, which is a songwriter award, also for Broken Man. Flea was nominated for Best Alternative Music Performance, and then the album All Born Screaming nominated for Best Alternative Music Album. So she better walk away with one of those, or the whole fucking thing is rigged. Again, so excited to have St. Vincent back. Loving the new album. All Born Screaming comes in at number 7. Coming in at number 6, the Jesus Lizard with Rack. This legendary 90s band is back with their first new album since 1998's Blue. Now, story of the Jesus Lizard, they were a Chicago band via Austin, Texas. Of course, that's where Scratch Acid was from, but that's another story. The Jesus Lizard was a Chicago band that recorded mostly for the Touch and Go Records label in the 90s. They were brutal, intense, with a vocalist in David Yao, who was just seemingly out of control with like these Charles Bukowski type lyrics and just wild. One of the most intense bands musically that I've ever seen. I was living in Madison, Wisconsin at the time, and them being from Chicago meant that they frequently played in Madison. So I got to see them at least 5 or 6 times while I was living in Madison. Now the band got more and more popular and ultimately left Touch and Go and went to Capitol Records, and that seemed to be a fatal offense for them or something, because so many people, myself included, just decided to write them off as like a big fuck you for selling out or whatever. And I do think their final 2 albums were kind of unfairly criticized by myself too. I'm not saying I wasn't involved in that, because I was. But I also think that it was because I didn't really give him a fair listen. And now I've gone back and listened to them and I thought, why did I hate these records so much? Like, this just sounds like Jesus Lizard with a little extra oomph in the mix. So this record is not really the Jesus Lizard with that extra oomph in the mix. It still has a very dry mix to it. It's not Steve Albini, the late Steve Albini. This was produced by the band and Paul Allen, but it does have that kind of almost Albini dry sort of feel. You know, the vocals are a little higher in the mix than they might have been back in the 90s, so you can just barely hear the craziness of what David Yao is doing. But bottom line is, these guys didn't miss a step. I mean, from what I read, they were just going to reunite to do some shows, and the 3 guys in the band decided to start making some music because they wanted to make new music, and Yao was a little skeptical. He heard what they were working on and decided, oh, I like this. I can definitely work with it. And wow, I'm super, super glad they did. Pretty much every song on here is great. The Jesus Lizard returns with Rack at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is Hello Mary's second album, Emita Ox. This New York City trio blew me away with their self-titled album. I discovered it a little bit late towards the end of last year, and that meant it wasn't on my countdown last year. Although if I had to do it over again, it absolutely would have. This band mixes a lot of different cool styles. It's like a little post-punk, a little noise, a little shoegaze, a little prog. They sometimes come off as a cross between Sonic Youth and Skrull. And I know Sonic Youth, known by everybody, Skrull, known by nobody. But if you merge those two together, I think that's kind of where they're going. Or a little bit that band Tsunami, if you remember them, Jenny Toomey from Simple Machines Records. Them, but they do get heavy and they do a lot of noise and stuff like that. So that's where the Sonic Youth angle comes in. You know, they all kind of sing, but I think that Helena Strait, the guitar player, is the primary singer, but you do hear the background from the drummer Stella and Michaela Oppenheimer, the bass player. And sometimes when they all 3 are doing it, they have this sort of like ethereal quality to it, and it's really nice. It's a little different. The last album was a little harder and aggressive. This album gets noisy, but it's a lot more atmospheric and stuff. I think the songwriting is taken up a notch from the previous album, although I love that album. That song Rabbit, I still love it every time I hear it. Hello Mary is one of these bands on my must-see list for 2025 because they didn't play here in 2024. So that will be on my agenda for next year. Hello, Mary with Emita Ox comes in at number 5.
Can I call you by your last name?
So last spring when I did that video, too soon to name the album, best album of 2024. Okay, I kind of strongly hinted that this Waxahatchee album, Tiger's Blood, would be the number 1. Turns out it's number 4. That's very close. I was just so caught up in that record at the time. I was listening to it over and over and over and over, and I got super just borderline obsessed with Katie Crutchfield for a little bit, just loving every song, every lyric. I was focusing so intently. I've been following Waxahatchee or Katie Crutchfield for a long time. And I remember when they were just an indie rock band. They were guitars and whatever. When I saw them 10 plus years ago or so at the Waiting Room, they were a guitar-based indie rock band. Now they're full-blown 100% Americana, kind of almost, country-ish, I think you would say. And, there should have been hints at just how great a songwriter Katie is. I mean, the first real hint, of course, was when they played her song on The Walking Dead. And I don't mean they played a track. I mean, there was a scene where it was like, it's been a long time since I watched the show, but where Daryl and Beth were in a room together in a house. It had a piano, and Beth gets behind the piano and starts playing the song Be Good by Waxahatchee.
And we'll buy a bearded shotgun.
Which flipped me out at the time because I actually did recognize it. That's an old Waxahatchee song. I was like, is she playing? It was so cool. And I was like, people are recognizing her greatness, right? And then their last album, St. Cloud, was just overwhelmingly loved. She brought back the same producer, which is this guy, Brad Cook, for the album. And it's just, they work together so extremely well. MJ Lenderman comes in and plays guitar. He's credited on the song Right Back to It. His album is great too. Didn't quite make the top 20, but probably would have been about number 22 or so. I don't know. This album was nominated for a Grammy in the Best Americana Album category. And I really, really do hope that she wins because this album is just phenomenal. I mean, I don't know of a better Americana album. Is there one this year? Maybe. Don't know. Coming in at number 3 is the self-titled album from Red Kross. These legends are back. It's only their 8th album, and they started this band in 1979, okay? So they're obviously not the most prolific band in the world. Now, I talked about this being another contender for number 1, and it is very close. And I did another video a little while back where I kind of was making fun of the Oasis reunion because it had just been announced. And I was like, oh, the Gallagher brothers. What about the McDonald brothers from Red Kross? They play Beatley pop, and they're much better, and you don't have to pay $800 or $1,000 for a ticket. You don't have to go see them in a stadium. But a lot of people didn't really get the joke. And besides, Red Kross, they are better than Oasis, but they're not really that similar, so it's kind of a wrong comparison. The Red Kross sound has always kind of mixed Beatley, psychedelic pop, power pop, 70s hard rock, and classic punk. You mesh all that stuff together and you get the sound of Red Kross. Clever lyrics, just genuinely great guys, The album, in this case, was produced by Josh Klinghoffer. Now, you might have heard that name. He was in the Red Hot Chili Peppers for a while. He is currently in the touring version of Pearl Jam. He plays drums on the record and produces it. He does a nice job, I have to say. He does a really nice job. I like this record. The album is a double, and there is not a dud on here on the entire song, on the entire record, I mean. And the song Stunt Queen, if you're not playing that one over and over and over and over when you hear it, like, are you insane? Like, what? Anyways, Red Kross, number 3.
I hope our time will never go.
Coming in at number 2 is The Past Is Still Alive from Hurray for the Riff Raff. This one, I also did in that same video where I talked about Waxahatchee being the number 1. I thought this one might be number 1 as well. And when I said, is there a better Americana album than the Waxahatchee? Maybe this one. Okay, maybe this one. This is the 8th album under the name Hurray for the Riff Raff. It's Alinda Segarra is the person behind all of the music. She's the main writer of the songs. This is really brilliant, melancholy kind of folk pop, and that's maybe it's Americana. I don't know. It definitely has a folk pop label. The songs are sometimes just very uplifting and sometimes just very sad and depressing. And I talked about in the previous video when I reviewed the album that the song Alibi off the album, I start welling up as soon as I hear it. I don't know what it's... I mean, some of the themes are about Alinda's father dying, but I don't think that's why that song connected with me. It's just... I don't know, but I get all verklempt whenever I hear it. This album was also produced by Brad Cook, who did the Waxahatchee record, so maybe there are some similarities, but I have to say I kind of like the Hurray for the Riff Raff better. That's why it's number 2, because it hits me more. Like, maybe on a technical level, I like the Waxahatchee, the way it's produced, the way it's played, and all of that, but Hurray for the Riff Raff hits me on a more emotional level, and that's why it came out at number 2. A couple of Omaha guest appearances here. So Connor Oberst from Bright Eyes does guest vocals on the song The World is Dangerous, which is amazing. And then Mike Mogus mixed the album at his studio here in town called ARC Studios. So again, Hurray for the Riff Raff, The Past is Still Alive. A little bit of a depressing album, but it's fucking great. It's my number 2. Have been telling anyone who will listen that King Hannah, Big Swimmer, is the best album of the year. Ever since I heard this last summer, it just blew me away. The first song I heard was Davy Says. I don't wanna walk it alone. Which is pretty atypical of most of the record because it's kind of a rocker, okay? By the way, King Hannah is a UK duo made up of Hannah Merrick and Craig Whittle. Hannah is the singer, and her singing style barely gets above a whisper most of the time. It's very chill. It's kind of like a talking singing style a la maybe Lou Reed or Dean Wareham or somebody like that. That's the style. And the band, and this record especially, have gotten a lot of comparisons to Mazzy Star, PJ Harvey, and Portishead, and it does have a very 90s feel to it. So after I heard Davy Says, which was just a great 90s grunge rocker tune, I went and heard the rest of the record, and you'll have like this really slow song that creeps along, and then they'll kind of rock out on the next one, and it's just very moody and very like up and down and great dynamics and everything. And the song New York Let's Do Nothing is definitely the most played song of mine this year, without question. I've probably played it like 50 times, because sometimes it's like I play it 3 or 4 times in a row because it's so good. King Hannah is also on my list of must-see bands in 2025. Maybe they need a new record for them to come back to the States or whatever, but they're on the agenda. Bottom line is, you like those records, Mazzy Star, PJ Harvey, Portishead. You're gonna probably get something out of this. You don't have to like those artists, though. If you do like the Velvet Underground, or you like Luna with Dean Wareham or Galaxy 500, I think you're gonna like this as well. Wow, it's just magic. I hear it over and over and over. If you're a Sharon Van Etten fan, she appears on 2 tracks on this. So again, so many different reasons to like this particular record, but not the least of which is the fact that your buddy Dave here picks it as number 1. King Hannah, Big Swimmer. All right, thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I did make a playlist with a couple of tracks from all 20 of my top 20 albums, and those will be linked below in Apple and Spotify. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everyone.
So, you have a MySpace page or something?